with an overwhelmed voice. This voice is indeed Professor Park Dong-hyuk that I have met before. Han-ul's side was similarly surprised. It was unbelievable that he could completely breed with another monster, while still maintaining his reason. Han-ul's piercing eyes caught Park Dong-hyuk's attention. He looked at Leader Du with praise, congratulating him on successfully implanting the aura weapon into his body. Looking at Cho Young, Dong-hyuk asked, "If I remember correctly, you also said you had some problems with Trong Tien Duok, right? Using permutation to restore it is a method worth trying. But I cannot guarantee that you will return to the way you were before." What the girl wanted to know was whether that possibility was high or not. But before Mr. Doctor could answer, Dae-sung interrupted. "I have something more important to ask. While this laboratory is in chaos, where are you?" The questioning and blaming were completely conveyed to Dong-hyuk by Dae-sung's unhappy eyes. He knew that no matter what, someone would ask him this question. So he was silent for a while, then finally answered, "I was the first breeding experiment. I saw that awakening aura alone was not enough to fight the monsters. So I decided to perform the monster-human breeding experiment with Jaehyu, who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. The simple method is to sleep to prolong life, and our goal is to have a very healthy body." But the experiment was not as successful as expected. Initially Jaehyu tried every way to solve the experiment's error. But I reset the automatic hibernation so that the experiment failed. But clearly Park Dong-hyuk is standing here. Chan Ho hesitantly spoke up. Wasn't the experiment already successful? He also had to choose something a little simpler, since my original body had died from anaphylactic shock in the hibernation device. And the experiment had been successful. Chan Ho wanted to talk more about the experiment. But Dae-sung didn't care much. Even if he knew the story, Dr. Goat wouldn't know where those people were. Han-ul, like him, also wanted to know where those Hans group were. Only Chan Ho didn't understand and had to ask Dae-sung. "Who are those people?" "I don't know. But they are trying to create more gates. The most famous member of the Vipro gang." But only then did the young man realize. It turns out there are other people creating the gates. That person had just woken up from the dream with an extremely painful look. Just as he was about to wake up with a sore neck, Jaehyu realized he was chained with both arms to a stone table. It's obvious that Han Dae-sung did this. "What are you planning to do to me?" His four limbs along with his neck were fixed on the stone table. Jaehyu could do nothing but open his mouth and roar. "You quickly kill me." Very quickly. From somewhere there was the sound of two sharp pieces of metal hitting each other. When Jaehyu looked over, he discovered that they were two sticks sharpened like needles. And the person holding that thing was in the air, no different from an executioner, covered in a tight plastic bag. He raised his voice in a loud and intimidating voice. "Can we start now?" Just now he asked to die. But when he saw the executioner coming, he jumped up again. Jaehyu jumped on the stone table. "Who are you? What are you planning to do to me? What else can I do?" My red eyes flashed. "I would be happy to cut your flesh. Having done so many evil things." Jaehyu's eyes now showed shock. Hanser's gathering place appears to be outside the galaxy, where a single rectangular stone table sits on a barren ground. In the sky, one can clearly see the vast universe with hundreds of thousands of stars. After a moment of silence, Elham, the Warden of the East, suddenly spoke up. An unexpected incident had happened in the East. Sitting opposite him was Vons, Bishop of the North, asking in return, what was the problem? The only woman was Western Bishop Karina sitting on the right, her voice carrying a smile. "I heard that Japanese hunters recently attacked the top-level gate." The last person was Azar, Bishop of the South, who spoke up, banging his fist on the table. "If you have something to say, hurry up. I'm very hungry." Correcting Karina's words, it is true that in Korea, we have already lost 2 people who control the space below. The atmosphere at the meeting table suddenly became more tense. Is there such a talented person in Korea? The Eastern Bishop told his accomplices that we had sent a high-ranking space controller to deal with that guy. But suddenly Azar stood up, demanding that I personally handle it, twisting his white fingers on the table. Elham did not look at him but suddenly asked, why did he think he did not take action himself? Azar did not answer. But his face paused for a few seconds, as if he understood what Elham meant. How is that possible? Do you mean I will lose to someone who knows how to use Azar? The Eastern bishop seriously said that he was not just a guy who knew how to use Azar. Just a simple word like that made the 3 remaining bishops stare at Elham. The news about Dr. Park's visit was quickly informed by the head of the Seoul branch to the director of the Hunter Association. At first, this Jungo took quite a while to digest the information he had just received. Then finally looking at his subordinate with a professional look, he concluded that there was a group of Hans guys kidnapping people and created that gate. The branch chief only reported what Hunter Dae-sung said, so no one knew better than him. Because of such vague information, the director felt really upset. If anyone found out about this, it would cause a stir in public opinion. Tapping his index finger on the arm of the chair, Jungo reminded the branch chief that if the press found out it would be very troublesome. Tell Jin Ki-hong to quietly investigate. That was okay, but he also wanted to know what his next mission was. On the outskirts of Seoul, a special place specializing in detaining false awakenings. Walking out of the re-education center was Wang Jun-young in his trademark elegant suit. Instead of the prison uniform as before, as soon as he saw him step out, a chirpy voice quickly called out to the leader. At first glance, it was Cho Young's welcoming face. But she smiled less and looked more sparkling and emotional. Putting his hand on the girl's shoulder, Jun Young greeted her with a humorous joke. Let's go eat tofu. She laughed, haha. Why would the leader be allergic to soy? There's someone I want you to meet. Jun Young looked at her with a puzzled look. He just got out of the re-education camp. So who should he take him to meet? Unexpectedly, from the car opposite was the smiling face of the goat monster. Hello Leader Wang. It's me, Professor Park. He immediately lost consciousness. His eyes and nose widened and he jumped into the car, screaming at that goat's head. Just crazy. I knew one day he would cause trouble. But what the hell is this? Dr. Goat was very angry. But I still had to tell him to shut up and get in the car. If I wanted to talk about anything, I could talk about it later. After sitting on the chair next to Dong Hyuk, Jun Young was still complaining. This crazy guy. I didn't expect him to turn out like this. Whoever saw the doctor's appearance for the first time didn't have the same expression as him. Dong Hyuk pretended not to care. Stop complaining. He just ate too much. The two of them cursed back and forth, letting the car speed away. Even though the shape was different, the way they spoke was still the same as the two best friends. At night, the streets of the capital Seoul were strangely quiet. A girl had just stepped out of the office after work. She always felt like someone was watching her, so she tightened her bag and walked carefully. Important, yet in front of her, a line of banter still rang out. Where did you go in such a hurry? Girl? The black shadow wearing a coat was a head taller than her. Looking down with an extremely dangerous smile, sweating profusely, she still bravely looked up and asked, "Who are you?" That person smiled evilly, planning to rip out her heart like he did with dozens of people in Seoul when suddenly he saw a flash of light right in his sight. He quickly backed away, avoiding the dagger that had just passed close to his face as Hyo Young-hoo of the Hunter investigation had just struck. He had been hiding for a long time, and finally caught the culprit behind the kidnappings. Mai-zong quickly retreat and call team leader Jin to come here and respond. She shouted clearly, then ran quickly back, leaving Young-hoo alone to face the hooded man. He tilted his head in annoyance. So this was a trap? The knife in Young-hoo's hand was tightly gripped by him warily. Although he had a weapon, the calmness of the opposite and the defensive style made him see that Wang was carrying more or less. Sure enough, that weird guy was fearless. He stuck out his weird tongue teasingly. Ah, aren't you the hunter who stabbed me to death at the headquarters of the Crimson Demon Gang? Thank you very much. With just one click, Young-hoo knew that this guy was on the same side as Lee Soku. His anger reached its peak. Young-hoo rushed out from where he was standing with a knife in his hand. Lee Soku should have been killed by me. Dozens of attacks were thrown at him, but that weird guy easily avoided them, teasing him with his scruffy face. With that skill, you can't kill Lee Soku. Do you understand? Then I will kill you. Young-hoo snapped. swinging the dagger in his hand towards the enemy at the fastest speed possible. Yet the other person simply used his fingers to grab it very easily. He even knew he had encountered someone who was not easy to take. And now he's just starting to get serious. Your mouth really doesn't know that. Having said that, that guy passed by Young-hoo in just a moment, before he saw someone appear 5 meters away from him, leaving a strong and deep line right on Young-hoo's neck. He was unwilling. He couldn't die here, but his head was blown out of his neck, spurting out a long stream of blood in accordance with the other person's calculations. He laughed with satisfaction, then for some reason turned back to look at the body in confusion. Oh my, OJIK told me not to kill members of the association. That's right. I almost forgot the guy who died in the lab was OJIK. I'm not sure if he was Namja-hoo or OJIK. But whatever. He stomped on the street, leaving the bloody body on the sidewalk, whistling as he walked towards the direction the girl named Mai Zong ran away. Killing that girl right away. The barbaric, insolent look of the weird guy when he stuck out his tongue appeared on the screen, making Chief Kai quick bored, slamming down the computer screen. This is what Young-hoo left behind about the criminal. Before the last breath, the information from Chief Kai quick made Jin Ki-hong speechless. Not knowing what to say, his superior immediately asked, "Have you found the identity of the murderer?" He immediately poured out a bunch of information. He said, "My name is Chongshik. I'm a rank D pseudo-awakener. 3 years ago I worked in Iran. Taking into account the number of remaining members of Yoongjun Chil who participated in the previous Seagate incident along with this incident, it seems that a large number of hunters have been organized by the organization called Hansa Recruited." On the opposite side, Chief Kai quick frowned and asked, "What about the person named OJIK who is part of the search team?" Ki-hong also knew about this. It seemed that the male Zehu who joined the Hansa organization only changed his identity to join the association. Mr. Chan-ho said that he died in the laboratory. If even Chan-ho knows, then all S-rank hunters already know about Hansa's existence. We will mobilize all hunters in the association to capture and deal with them. Slam your hand firmly on the tabletop. This matter is really important. It is not Chief Kai Quick but Seo Dong-chul who is not bothering to beat around the bush anymore, but goes straight to the main issue in front of Chan-ho. On the outside, he still politely invited me to speak, but in his mind, he secretly had a hard time understanding why he came here again. Dong-chul put on a good face and started introducing. "I run the organization and hope to bear fruit. Have you ever heard of it?" Of course Chan-ho has heard of it. It's an organization that specializes in taking care of children who have lost their parents due to monsters and attacks. On the opposite side, Dong-chul smiled brightly. "If Director Sung knew, then I believe we would understand each other much better. This year we want to build a residential area for children, and because the number of gates is decreasing, the budget is a bit tight." "What is the budget?" Chan-ho's face had a wry smile. Why did he have to tell me about the budget? Ignoring his question, Dong-chul's hand clasped Chan-ho's hand tightly like old friends meeting again. "Thank you very much, Mr. Sung. From now on, if you ever need to come to me, Seo Dong-chul, just call me." Because of Chan-ho's insolent nature, he's now scratching his head and not understanding anything. This matter hasn't been decided yet. I haven't discussed it with Hunter Dae-sung yet. Whether the other person heard or understood was his business. Dong-chul gave the young man a like and left with a smile. What a meaningful conversation. Please make a thoughtful decision. After speaking, he went out and slammed the door in front of Chan-ho, making him stand still for a moment. This guy wants me to donate 400 million to the Northern Development Project. But he's talking like that. At the park along the Han River, it was already afternoon. The wind was blowing softly, extremely suitable for six-pronged men jogging to find a lover. Chong-sik was enjoying such a productive day when he suddenly saw someone standing in front of him as if he had been waiting for a long time. It was a tall, dark man standing smiling brightly under the bright sunlight, looking at him immediately. He was clearly a foreigner, but for some reason, that smile seemed to linger on Chong-sik, making him wary, standing still and asking, "Who are you?" The other person didn't say a word but threw a kick straight at the leader's face. causing him to duck down to avoid the extremely fast attack. In addition to his physical advantage over Chongshik, the other person's punch also caused the air behind him to explode with a rebound like he had just fired several shots. The leader's eyes looked vicious and unhappy. That clumsy attack had no effect. Finishing his sentence, he jumped up parallel to the ground, kicked the black guy's head, but was stopped by him very gently, with a bonus smile like a toothpaste advertisement. That guy was half as tall as Chongshik, pointed straight at him and praised him for being cool, and added some foreign language, but his attitude was clearly saying, "You can't surpass me even if you're cool." Finishing the sentence, without letting the opponent react, the black man crouched down and moved quickly towards Chongshik like a boxer. That terrible speed could only be followed with the eyes. But the leader had no way to fight. Pay promptly. Damn it, I'm at a loss. His opponent clearly knew that. So when he rushed forward with a punch in his hand, he shouted, "But I'm still the coolest person to come." There was no time left. Chongshik could only cross his arms to cover his face, silently cursing "damn it." Then just like that, the black guy's punch that wanted to shake the whole wharf. At the orphanage far from the city center, Dong Chul had just returned and called the nun to show off what he had just told Chan Ho. "Well, in the first half of this year, we will build an apartment complex for the orphans. Volunteers can live there with peace of mind. I received the contribution from Dae Sung Gang." She was both surprised and happy. Can Dae Sung Gang take on so many things? I don't know if people are capable or not. But Dong Chul's confident nodding expression makes people believe it. "If I participate in an S-rank gate attack with them, then we can make a lot of money. So you don't have to worry." Suddenly, Dong Chul glanced back warily from the door of the youth camp director's office. He could see a vague male figure approaching. Suddenly standing up, Dong Chul screamed loudly, "I'm sorry, sister, but please quickly take all the volunteers and hide in the bunker." The people sitting in the room panicked, and the nun's eyes widened, not understanding what was going on. There was no time to explain. Dong Chul scowled with extreme urgency and once again urged him to hurry up. On the yard of Hope Children's Camp was a tall, muscular guy with a crew cut and blonde hair, with his hands in his pockets, walking leisurely like his own neighborhood. Suddenly, the eyes under his sparse eyebrows looked slightly forward, discovering Dong Chul's figure wearing a cheap tracksuit rushing towards him with a baseball bat in his hand. He used all his strength to knock hard, as if the sky was looking down at the stranger who had just appeared. But he flexed his arms to form a ball of strength to block it with no difficulty. Dong Chul was thrown backwards, his right foot remaining on the paved ground to avoid being thrown away. Just with that, he already felt that his opponent was extremely difficult. Could he actually block his attack? Right now, in front of Dong Chul's eyes, the opponent was just waving his hand and dissolving the defensive ball from before. He had to be more careful. The gate last time was a bit easy, so everything went smoothly. "I guess I had to exercise more today." This stranger was clearly also a foreigner. Without saying a word, he raised his left arm and spread out 2 fingers. Then shot a stream of purple power that looked like thunder towards Dong Chul. Treating it as a baseball, he swung the bat in his hand hard and hit the thing away. Unexpectedly, it did not fly but fell next to his feet and transformed into a blazing fire. So that's it. Dong Chul gritted his teeth in frustration. A guy specializing in remote combat. In front of the door of house number 210 was a black woman with strange clothes. She stood there for a long time, not knowing that inside the house was the calculating smile of little Sol Yian. Holding a hand in her hand, the ugly black doll or Chuki Daesung doll made from Daesung's hair is finished. True to its name, Chuki, this doll is both ugly and scary to look at. Yet in Seo Yian's hands, it is like a toy that she pampers and praises all sorts of cute and adorable things. It's too cool to handle. It's true that taking Daesung's hair is different. He's in a land other than Earth but still feels itchy and uncomfortable in his ears. I can't describe it. Unbeknownst to both teachers and students, a stranger appeared in front of Sol Yian's door, also a foreigner like the other two, muttering somewhere, hoping to end this quickly. It's not clear what this woman did. But suddenly there was black smoke around Seo Yeon's house. Like someone burned a ton of trash. Yawning tiredly, Seo Yeon didn't know why she had an inexplicable feeling of sleepiness. But it wasn't just sleepiness. That smoke penetrated into the house, causing her to lose consciousness and fall to the side exactly like her. It's like being injected with an anesthetic. Her hand placed on the doll that Seo Yeon snored loudly as if she had not slept for 8 days. The witch could not know that the ugly and painful doll in her hand suddenly emitted an extremely strong evil aura. Her eyes, its light flashed just like Annabella smiled. Someone pressed the lock code from the outside. Peeking in the middle of the doorframe was the face of the black woman from before. She knew there was no more noise in the house, so she opened the door wide and stood there. I already bought this apartment before. Something swirled violently in her right hand, turning into a staff made from a strange wood, with a large gem like an ostrich on top, emitting a bright yellow light. In complete contrast with all her mumbling words. From now on, this place will be the altar of the underworld. Not even a few steps into the house, the black woman suddenly stopped, looked around with extreme surprise, and finally her eyes stopped at a short pair of green hair. Not yet reaching her head. My pillow is the Chuki Dae-sung doll. Smiling Kakeke. Strangely gloomy. I don't know who put the tie knife in its hand. But this doll looks exactly like the main character of a ghost movie shown in theaters. Chuki Dae-sung's strange gloomy appearance made the black woman feel very uneasy. This hideous doll. Why is she here? Not only is it disgusting, but it can also stick out its tongue and lick the handle of the knife. While angrily replying to that bitch. What are you talking about? Are you calling me disgusting? Having touched her mother's books, she quickly calculated that if she burned the intermediate object of the curse, this doll would also die. So with both arms outstretched the staff, she shouted loudly, Great Fire Chakra, prison. The fire had just emitted on the yellow stone. Chuki Dae-sung screamed as if someone had cut him off. What a stupid line. He was angry because his blue hair, identical to Dae-sung's, was burned and burned, without any background at this level. He opened his throat and let out a long scream, then quickly rushed towards that black woman, demanding to live or die with her. Although this doll is small, it is clearly very powerful. She stood still in place, summoning a great chakra bottle to protect herself, which had a real effect. Chuki stuck the knife straight into it without any hesitation. But the doll's face became more and more savage. He swings his hand holding the knife again and I will tear you apart. Go die. The knife in Chuki's hand was continuously slammed down on the black woman's yellow shield. She soon panicked and discovered that the shield was slowly cracking, until it made a resounding clang. Because of that, she lost her momentum and fell backwards, becoming a delicious piece of meat for Chuki to repeatedly stab. In Sol Yeon's living room, only the sound of a knife was heard, along with the painful screams of the intruder. Chuki stabbed her until she couldn't scream anymore. But he still didn't stop, a look of pleasure showing on his face. What a pleasant sound. Finally, there was a decisive scream and then it stopped. The whole house 210 was as quiet as ever. The door to the Seoul branch office suddenly opened, and the branch chief, who appeared immediately, asked urgently, reporting about the remnants of the gate that were spreading. The secretary immediately replied, those are not remnants. Battles are happening all over the city. Several people sitting in front of the surveillance screen turned around to respond quickly. According to the report, leader Lee Chong-sik and an unidentified person were fighting at Han River Park. A group of hunters from his Zosung gang confirmed that the orphanage had reported that director Seo Dong-chul and an unknown person were also fighting. Targeting S-rank hunters like that could only be Hans and the others. The branch chief realized the tense situation and quickly analyzed it. The Zosung gang has been sent to the Han River, so we will support the orphanage and immediately send people there. Most of the activities in Han River Park had completely evacuated, leaving only the resounding fighting sounds of two people who had just met each other not long ago. The black man still smiled happily, touching his chin and praising him. Oh, Korean hunters are smarter than I thought. He looked completely opposite to Chong-sik, who was more or less scratched. He was angry at the other guy's arrogant attitude. So he raised his middle finger and cursed you. You bastard. You dog. That dog was not afraid of being scolded. His fist emitted bright red fire, looking like a piece of iron heated to a high temperature. It was a mighty powerful fist, firing a gust of wind rushing towards Chong-sik. He was confused when he realized his body was being pulled forward. But then suddenly, that thing disappeared to the owner's surprise. A purple curtain came out of nowhere and blocked Chong-sik's face. He widened his eyes. Why did it stop? It seemed that the attacker did not know why his awakening suddenly stopped like that. Until his sneakers dragged on the ground. Park Ha-jin appeared in plain clothes. And the two realized it was because she had just used a barrier to save Chong-sik. Without taking her eyes off the black guy, she spoke sarcastically but sounded much more tense. Why was the famous hunter Lee Chong-sik in 5 continents being teased by this guy? A grin appeared on Chong-sik's face. Thank you. I owe you this time. Ha-jin wanted to quickly ask the identity of the name in front of her. Whether he belonged to Hanser or not. But Chong-sik didn't know what Hanser was. She frowned and blamed this stupid leader. He hadn't seen the announcement from the association, sent to S-rank hunters. Suddenly, there were many people running behind screaming loudly. Leader, leader, are you okay? A bunch of people rushed forward and made a noise that made the black guy furious and used his big fists again. He rushed forward and wanted to punch his target to death so that no one could make him lose his temper anymore. It looked like fire, but the hurricane his fist created looked exactly like a horizontal tornado. Ha-jin's hand immediately rose high, focusing on performing the special skill Aura Light Discharge, directly confronting the wind created by that black man, causing the surrounding air to be compressed violently. The destructive power of these two things is too formidable. From now on everyone realizes that the strength of Chong-sik's attacker must also be in the A-class. S-class range. It's no joke. Quickly give me the weapon. The leader stretched out his hand towards his subordinates, immediately seeing a brother holding a sword sheath facing his head in that direction. The sword was held by Chong-sik in the palm of his hand. His tone was heard, much stronger. Now you're probably dead. His shoe lips parted with displeasure. It seemed like he had pushed himself a bit too hard before catching his prey. Just coming here today, with such a large crowd. He suddenly turned his eyes in front of the crowd without saying a word. Goodbye. But Chong-sik's habit of being competitive right now must be at the bottom. He feels nothing more than dizziness and fatigue. Before he could say a word to his crush, he slumped forward, eyes closed, apparently fainted. The group of people rushed to call Chong-sik by many names but didn't see any response from him. They were in aura shock. So quickly take him to the hospital. Elsewhere, the concrete ceiling was vibrating loudly, causing the only light to follow. And the volunteers, nuns, and children of the orphanage were so nervous that they could hardly breathe. Should be shorter. The kids didn't know what was going on. They just felt like there was something dangerous outside. Will the director be okay? Sister nodded firmly, of course. Do you know what he often says? Before she could finish her sentence, a red-shirted boy stood up and imitated Sol Dong-chul's tone, patting his chest confidently. My name is Seo Dong-chul, Korea's #1 hunter. It imitated the same confident appearance, making everyone couldn't help but laugh loudly. The atmosphere inside was much more comfortable, but no one knew that outside the war was still in progress. Most stressful. Dong-chul never stopped. He was now flailing his arms to avoid the barrage of bullets being fired by the opponent. Breathing heavily in his tracksuit, Dong-chul silently cursed. Damn it, why can't I find any loopholes in his movements? Just throwing a little red smoke in his hand. The blonde man smiled comfortably. Let's end this. He raised his hand and saw red bullets coming out of his hand. No matter how he looked, he saw that danger was coming. Dong-chul had no choice but to keep a close eye and watch. What the hell was going on? Bracing his muscular arms, that person shouted loudly, punching loudly. All the red rays were thrown high into the air, forming a rain of red arrows, simultaneously falling on Dong-chul's head. He cursed once and then the stick melted, using an aura technique that made it glow with the blue color of lightning and lightning. Seo Dong-chul shouted, standing in the middle of a thunderstorm area. Then let out a loud bang underneath the curtain of red arrows that were pounding into the tiled yard. Where he was standing, there was nothing but tall columns of smoke rising. By the time it dispersed, somehow Dong Chol's body was pierced with arrows. Looking no different from a hedgehog. He was coughing. His mouth was dripping with dark blood. But his eyes were still steadfastly looking at the person in front of him. I can't die here. Damn it. But human strength has its limits. After cursing, Dong Chol fell face down on the ground. Not sure if he fainted or died. The blonde guy's hands were shaking. This guy was so stiff. I had used up all my power. The assigned task had been completed. Looking nearby, he saw a rumbling sound as if reinforcements were coming. The blonde man did not linger any longer. But with a boom, he disappeared right where he had just stood. So among those attacked, only Witch Sol Yian's hand touched the pool of blood of the person who attacked her. She closed her eyes and focused on using blood signatures to absorb the power from her body. Intruder, placing the doll on that pool of blood. She mumbled and read, My dear Dae Sung Chupki. You saved me. Sol Yian's entire body was filled with a purple aura that was no different from her owner. Her face was completely confident. Just a doll could kill a high-level assassin. By that evening, information about the explosion that occurred at Han River Park was still kept secret from the public. The news could only report that a few witnesses at the scene saw someone attacking Hunter Lee Chong-sik. Similar to what happened at Ms. Hai Vong's children's camp, the information was generally superficial. Dae Sung's mother watched the news and felt uneasy. Why hasn't her son come home for several days? I was thinking about reaching for my phone to call Dae Sung. Jisoo came out of the bedroom looking sleepy. Why isn't mom sleeping yet? Mr. Chan Ho said there was no need to worry about Mr. Hai. She looked at her daughter and asked again. When did Dae Sung call you? What have you been doing these past few days? Having said that, she suddenly became alert. I can't help it. There's nothing to worry about. Dare to say something like that to your mother. Eat a fig right away. This brat doesn't know anything. How many things has your brother given you and still dare to eat it like that? Not long after the sound of the mother and child chirping stopped. On the roof of the apartment appeared a figure in a flying cloak. With this hooded interface, it was none other than the weird guy who killed Young Hu the other day. He stuck out his tongue and licked it around in amusement. They said they were dealing with one person and taking the other person hostage? His target is of course the mother and daughter living in the apartment that Dae Sung bought for them. Standing outside the huge bedroom window, staring inside, this weird guy discovered that his targets were just two civilians. So he reached out with a little force, intending to cut open this door and then commit the crime. Quickly, unexpectedly, something like electricity collided with his index finger, causing his right hand to retract immediately. It hurts. What is that? On Dae Sung's mother's chest, a stream of white smoke suddenly emitted. It echoed with small buzzing sounds like electric shock. It was the monster summoned from the Iron Castle that was threatening to come out from behind the protective fence. Shows signs of intrusion. The other guy was suddenly eaten by something that pierced his stomach from front to back, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Without the slightest resistance, that thing was like a sharp and long spear, thrusting that strange guy straight into the sky. All the strength in his hand was gone, and even the knife fell to the ground. The dragon soldier killer was full of threats. The king was sleeping. If you wanted a gentle death, you'd better keep your mouth shut. There was a look of horror in the strange man's eyes. Even though Han Dae Sung wasn't here, there was still a monster summoned. Compared to the size and strength, there is no chance of winning. That strange guy was confused and wanted to explain. But the dragon soldier killer did not bother. If he heard, the master would personally ask you. In the land that the system brought to this time, it was like space with only one moon reflecting on the lake surface. Thundering waves pounding crazily. From below, a truly Asian dragon emerged from below. The black dot rides above, appearing between heaven and earth. The system announced that Dae Sung had completed the Ma Long Hai mission. The temple's descent rate reached 99%, from which the reward of the Supreme Being, the celestial body, had been completely liberated. The evil energy on Dae Sung's body now rose with a distinctly different look. His hair and eyebrows had all turned white, complementing the smile on his lips. We have returned to the golden age. While he was alone happily, he suddenly heard the voice of the assassin long been reporting. Supreme Lord, I have captured a mouse intending to harm the king. Just that one sentence caused thunder and lightning to crackle outside the iron castle. It suddenly lit up when the owner returned, clearly illuminating a man with a shackle kneeling on the ground. This is the weird guy who was brought here without a single clue in his mind. He couldn't see anything in front of him, and behind him he could only hear the clacking sound of shoe soles approaching. Dae-sung's message board continuously popped up with congratulations from the monsters, making him feel incredibly annoying. Why did this group of people suddenly worship him? When did he walk up to that weird guy, clearly hearing the boredom in his voice? Then, when is the time for me to take you out? Hey there, Dae-sung called the man with a cold voice when he turned around. Everyone could see his clearly angry expression. Who is your master? In the North Han's shrine, Bishop Elam was sitting on a stone bench carved to look like a family tomb. He only had one question for the two guys standing over there. How's the target? The blonde man said simply. S-rank second rank Seo Dong-chul had been completely destroyed, while the black guy looked sulky again. I had almost finished taking care of the target. He waved his hand and explained. If it weren't for someone intervening, that first-rate guy would have been killed by me. So in short, Guzman is dead, and Saget is missing. The other two looked at each other in confusion. The demon Guzman was assigned to the weakest. So why did he die? Elam sat above without paying attention. He tapped his white fingers loudly. Then suddenly a giant head emerged from his neck, twisting like a tree trunk. Behind the mask is a face as big as the body with two completely different eyes. Elam showed that terrifying look to invite his two subordinates. I will give you the power of an apostle. Immediately take Han Dae-sung's life for me. After fainting in Han River Park, Channing Sik was immediately carried to the cardiovascular hospital of Do-sung Group. In the top room, carefully guarded by two tall, dark bodyguards, Chang-shik was alone fighting the pain inside. Before I opened my eyes, I heard the secretary shouting. He's awake. Quickly call the doctor and immediately notify the chairman. The leader has woken up. Hearing the commotion, Chang-sik wondered before asking. The secretary next to him pulled his hair to find the words to answer. Leader, how are you feeling? You're shocked because you've exhausted your aura. You shouldn't move yet. Chang-sik forced himself up, only feeling humiliated, even at the point of being ranked number 1 nationwide. Are you still shocked by the aura? Looking straight at a subordinate standing at the end of the bed, Chang-shik asked where Ha-jin was. As soon as he replied, Ms. Beek Ha-jin went to Seo Dong-chul, and the person next to him scowled and reminded him. Hey, why did you say that? Hearing that, Chang-sik immediately wanted to know what was wrong with Dong-chul. Clearly, there was something that made the two subordinates not dare to say anything. The words hesitated on their lips, but after a while they spoke clearly. Director Seo was also attacked by a fully armed man and heard that his situation was very critical. So Ms. Beek rushed there immediately. Chang-sik immediately jumped out of bed and asked where Dong-chul was. The secretary didn't intend to tell him at first, but the leader didn't want to argue any further. He grumpily repeated, where? Also in another high-class hospital room in the cardiovascular hospital. The sound of regeneration, regeneration, regeneration for me was continuously heard. Jing Ki-hong stood and watched, sweating. I think you can stop now. All the skin wounds have healed. However, Ha-jin's face still did not soften at all. From now on, she has been constantly shaking Dong-chul. Please wake up. You can't die. Please wake up quickly. The door was pushed open from the outside. The person who rushed in was none other than Chang-sik, also calling for Dong-chul. Then when the leader clearly saw the unconscious face of the person he always admired, he became speechless. Don't say you're dead. It's not like he's dead. Only Ki-hong calmly answered. He's in a coma. The data says he's brain dead. Before, he didn't care, but now Chang-sik really wants to know who those Hans bastards are. Ki-hong could only give general information that the association was trying its best to track down their traces. Suddenly, The phone in his pocket rang and the director on the other side announced that an S-Class gate had just appeared. Just hearing the news made the two hunters in the room turn pale. The famous trio had lost one person. Why did it happen at such a good time? Silence filled the hospital room. Everyone knew that an S-Class gate without one of the three hunters here could not be solved. The gate that the group had just heard appeared looming in the center of the city, looking like a sun preparing to burn several buildings. The people in the city's surveillance room jumped up and stared at the screen in disbelief. Lee Chong-sik was in aura shock. Seo Dong-chul was in a coma. And Du Han-ul was repairing the computer. Currently, only Baek Ha-jin and Seo Yeon can be used. But they are only support hunters. Immediately deploy Red Alert and mobilize all hunters of the association. His shout brought everyone back to work. All hunters will be dispatched because the core hunters are no longer able to fight. Although he was the one giving strong orders, the branch chief also felt insecure and needed more strength to be able to destroy that S-rank gate. And the person with the power he longed for was now in the Iron Castle. Thunder and lightning thundered above, just to get information from Sagat, whose eyes were wide open by the one-eyed demon. Dae-sung was not far from his face. Wanting to exhaust all his memories to know the truth, he quickly saw through everything since this guy became a henchman for the big eyeliner. The opponent was startled and trembled a few times but could not escape Dae-sung's power. In the end, he dug up all the information and came to the conclusion that the guy with the big eyes was the final boss. The capital Seoul still has normal traffic, but the news is awaited by all people, because residents are gradually leaving the city center to go to the suburbs, away from where the gate recently appeared. Right now, the line of evacuation vehicles was so long that there was no end in sight. On the contrary, a large number of hunter vehicles were entering. Meanwhile, some unofficial sources reported that